Welcome to the video on Timeless 2 from FabFilter. It's coming to you from Sonic Academy. My name is Sammy, also known as Ainzab, and we're going to go through the Timeless GUI right now, and I'm just going to give you a familiarity of where everything is and what it does. So let's start with a clean setting. We're going to go to our presets up here, and I'm going to load up clean. So we have a default mode here. You'll notice I can minimize this modulation area, so I'm just going to get that out of the way for now. And we're going to focus on the delay part of the plugin right here. Now you'll notice whenever I hover over something, I get a pop-up. And if I stay there long enough, I'll get a large description come up from the help section. And that's activated here, show interactive help hints, and show the component displays. You can also, of course, go into the manual and visit the website for support and so on. So going back to the delay lines, I'm going to load up a sample of a guitar playing, and it's quite percussive. Now, I've actually got this on full wet. This is on the master channel on Cubase right now. So if I turn it down, we get nothing at all. But this is our dry level. So now we're hearing just this guitar part. As I bring up the wet amount, you can now hear the echo. So we'll start here with our input. We can use this to drive the delay, and it will more readily enter into feedback distortion with more input. So moving on from the input level, you'll notice we have a feedback section here. So these can be set independently for each delay line, and it controls how many times the audio signal comes back into the input and is repeated. What happens as we go through the channel here is after going through the filters, it comes out again and back into the input. This way you create a feedback loop. Now the feedback loop stays within the channel, but with cross feedback we can actually leak some of the feedback from the other channel into this one. So for example, here's left and here's right. If I bring up the left cross feedback, I will now be able to leak some of the feedback in from this channel, as you can see by this arrow here. And if I do the same with the right, I can leak some of the feedback in from the left side. Of course, these are actually arbitrarily defined as left and right because they can be both centered, or this one can be left and this one can be right, but let's just set them back to their default left and right configuration. So I'm going to play this signal for you now, and I'm going to bring in the feedback and the cross feedback. But before I do that, let me just switch this so that we're locked into tempo, because otherwise it's going to sound really off. Now we lock tempo by clicking on these beat measures here. And there are also these little dots, and these give us our subdivisions, so dotted, triplet, etc. Let's say I bring in this right cross feedback amount now. You can hear it in the right channel. Now I'm going to command click and reset this to 0. And so that's what cross delay does. Now next up is phase inversion. If I click on this, we're now going to invert the phase of the right channel. This is going to become more apparent when we try some other material, so let me just introduce something else to this equation. I'm going to bring in some voice. That should really help us hear it. Now I'm actually using different delay times on each line. So this is a very effective way of getting a nice stereo spread. I'm going to actually bring down the dry level so we can just listen to the wet signal on its own and hear this better. Now you'll notice I'm controlling both parameters for the left and right at the same time. I'm doing that by holding down Alt or Option. We're getting into that feedback loop here. Now to further widen the stereo image here, I'm going to hold down Shift. So I've now offset the timing slightly, which gives us an even wider sound. Now, once this is locked to tempo, this becomes your offset. If this was not locked, this would actually control the delay time. So you notice we're hearing this slowdown pitching effect. That's because we're in tape mode. If I was to change this to stretch, the delay times would change without causing any pitch bending, so it's not smooth, it's all glitchy. It's pretty awesome as an effect. I'm going to hit this lock button here, and this is going to lock the right side and the left side, so now I just need one control to control both of them. And a little bit later I'm going to show you how to really modulate that and get some really cool glitch effects. So for now, let's go back to our tape mode, unlock this, and bring back our lock delay lines. I'm going to bring in a couple more elements now. It's going to help us hear more of the frequency spectrum as we're going to check out the filters. We're still only on a wet mix, and we have a phase reversal here. And now you can really hear what that phase reversal is doing. Now you can see this little symbol here. If I grab hold of it, I'm now controlling the filters. We have two filters. We have independent control for each one here and here. We have the resonance here, and this is the cutoff. Each filter can be panned. So we got left and right. If I want to move both of them in tandem, I can hold down Alt, or I can just grab this. Bringing it down controls the resonance. And moving it left and right controls the cutoff. Now there are also some drop-down menus here. We can have low pass, high pass, and band pass. So the high pass is the opposite of the low pass, where we actually cut out the low frequencies. And the band pass allows frequencies within these bands to pass through. We can turn one filter off and just use one filter, and of course deactivate both of them. Now currently we have a serial routing, which means both delay lines go into filter 1, and then from there they go right into filter 2, and then they proceed to exit to the wet mix and then go back into the input. If I was to change this to parallel, we now have both of the delay lines going into both filters 1 and 2, but the filters are separate. The filters don't feed into each other. And this is probably a more ideal way to use them when you're panning them left and right. So let's have a listen to them in this mode and see what we can do to the stereo image. Now if you're wearing headphones in particular, this is going to sound really wide and strange. I'm going to bring up the dry mix now. Again, I'm going to go back to serial and listen to how that sounds. We're not getting much signal out of the right channel because it's already been filtered here. Perhaps to turn this off. There it is again. But when it's on, it's being filtered, so we're not getting very much. We have an imbalance here. This is why parallel's a much better setting. Now the last one is per channel, which just means the left side, or delay 1 and delay 2, go into the filters independently. Now a pretty neat feature here is we actually have a lot of different filter models to choose from. Clean is perhaps one of the easiest to work with because it's the most predictable. I'm going to go back to low pass now. And I'm going to turn off this one and just have one filter. That's the most typical kind of filter that you're probably used to hearing. Now, if I go to FabFilter 1, you're going to hear a lot of distortion come into that. This is fantastic if you want to create a feedback loop that just goes on and on and on. Because you're adding these sort of self-oscillating resonances. So there's a lot of great tones you get from FabFilter 1 filter. But these other ones are interesting too. They need to be explored, and you just want to get familiar with each one of them. Some of these are extremely screamy. This one's quite smooth and dull. It's perfect for making a vintage style tape delay. I'm going to go ahead and activate filter 2 now. I'm going to change our delay time. So we've got a great tape delay already. And so it is for the other filters too. You just need to go through them, get a feel for what they can provide. Now there's one more thing I want to show you here, and it's this little unassuming button here, which is actually very powerful. This freezes the input buffer so that basically a section of the audio you're playing is stored in Timeless 2 and is constantly fed into the delay. So what happens is whatever you're playing is no longer being input into Timeless 2. The input is effectively shut off and it just loops a segment that's in the buffer. Let me just play this and I'll show you what I mean. It's an endless loop right now. And you can begin to filter. So if I bring in the dry, you'll hear that the song is still playing. But this is only playing a certain segment that we saved in the buffer. If you just click it at random points in your song, you can get some really interesting loops. And you can automate this, and it's a great one to automate. So that's it for the front panel of Timeless 2. It's already extremely powerful what you can do from the front of this plugin, but I'm going to show you the modulation section next, and that is going to take us into a whole new level of flexibility and power. Thanks for watching, take care.